Hey, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to Scientific and Technical Communication. My name is Richard Ward. I'm going to be your instructor for this semester. Over this semester, we're going to have some real, it's hard to compress such a big, voluminous course into one small summer section, but we're going to do that. And before we get started, I'll let you know a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Dublin, Georgia. If you can tell, the accent's still pretty there. I have been with Michigan Tech now for about 5 years, and I am currently working towards my PhD. Once I'm done with that, we'll see where life takes me. I don't know where we'll end up, but after that, but we'll see. I hope to hear more from you guys. I hope you noticed that there is a place for you guys to go and introduce yourself on the message board as well. So please feel free to go in there and do that. Most of the message boards and things of that nature are going to be graded here. We don't have a class participation. We don't have a class to participate in. Therefore, we're using a virtual classroom. I expect everyone here to adhere to a modicum of decorum. When you come into those message boards, let's be civil. Let's be just use your best judgment, and also be aware that participation is vital. Not participating will cost you. Other than that, I think we should just jump right into it. Let's start talking a little bit more about what technical communication is. And to do that, I am going to be lecturing using these slides. So the learning objectives that I really want us to get out of this is going to be, first, we're going to be able to define technical communication, just what it is, recognize the digital and human sides of technical communication, understand that technical communication has a global reach, appreciate the role of technical communication in most careers, know what technical communicators do. We want to identify the main features of technical communication, explain the purpose of technical communication, and describe the 4 tasks involved in preparing effective technical documents. All right, this last point is going to be a glossary. We're just going to be glossing over that. We are really going to get in depth throughout the semester on how to specifically prepare specific documents. So first, what is technical communication? What does it mean? Technical communication, as you can see here, is the exchange of information that helps people interact with technology and solve complex problems. You may have seen some examples out there of technical communication, and I know the first thing typically comes to mind is going to be instructions, a set of instructions, things that you get a piece of new furniture, or you get a new laptop, all that paperwork that comes along with it. That is very good examples of what technical communication is to an extent, but that's not all it is. Technical communication is much, much deeper than that. It's also going to be, asking for funding. It's going to be asking for voters. It's going to be asking for people to participate. These are all audience awareness. All of these things come into, they're of a vital importance. Beyond that, technical communication is also important with the ways that other people are going to receive it, right? And we are entrenched in a time where it cannot be stressed enough the importance of technical communication, good technical communication, with people out there thinking that certain scientific fact is debatable, all kinds, numerous things out there where people just misunderstand what is put out there. There are a lot of examples. So to interact with technology in so many ways, we need information that's not only technically accurate, but it's also going to be easy to understand and use for that person that's going to be using it. It's not enough that you put something out there that you feel proud of, that is perfectly clear to you, okay? You're not going to be in a room where other people are going to be reading that to explain to them what you meant by certain things. So it's important to understand it's only going to be as good as well as it is received. Okay, your document is only ever going to be as good as it is received by the reader. So technical communication serves various needs in various settings, like we've already talked about. You've got the instructions for assembling things like lawnmowers, um, for assembling. You can even get instruction manuals for building a gaming PC, all kinds of cool stuff out there. But we've all seen examples of good and bad instruction writing in this. One only need to look so far as your local big box store, where you can go in and perhaps buy a DVD player or a CD player or something of that nature that you want to install in your vehicle or whatever, and then it comes with these instructions and you've got a great price on it, but these instructions weren't written by people whose native language was English. Or these people may have written it without a whole lot of knowledge into how the technical writing process works. And it becomes confusing. And nothing can typically make us more frustrated when we're putting things together and we don't understand what they're talking about. User manuals for operating certain pieces of medical equipment and machinery. You also have user operator manuals out there that come along with stuff like your PCs, all that good stuff to make sure that you're using best practices when you're using them, telling you what you should and should not download, or what you should and should not turn off in settings, any of that stuff. We're also using technical writing for report making, and this is going to be where you're going to be analyzing a problem or an issue, and also where you may be asking for those to come out and help you with that problem or issue. It's also going to be reports on trying to get funding, reports to describe travel expenses. All of these things are technical documents that are very important and need to be written well. The memo is going to be the most common form of technical communication that you're going to do in a professional setting, whether it be in this classroom or in the real world. When you move on from here to go and work in your departments or in your fields, you're going to see a lot of memo use. It's going to be on company memo letterhead. You're going to have specific ways of doing memos to keep them professional, clear, and concise. Concise is important in memos. And procedures. And this is going to be for complying with certain government regulations, certain business regulations, best practices within companies, and things of that nature. So it's a digital and a human activity, and then people make information meaningful by thinking critically and addressing such questions as, which information is going to be relevant to the situation? Can I verify the accuracy of this source? Too few people do that these days. What does this information mean? What action does it suggest that I must take or that is necessary? How does this information affect me or my colleagues, or does it at all? With whom should I share it? Very important to understand with whom you should share it. Is this an internal document? Is this an external document? Those can be very important to note. How might others interpret this information? Think about context. Think about all the email issues that you see with government, okay? They were on this government server using this, or they shared these emails or whatever. But a lot of that stuff is often taken without a context, without knowing what the information was behind it. And I'm not talking about any specific one person. You can take any number of emails, start putting together any number of conspiracy theories that you would like, and suddenly, because you don't have particular context, you can start to make certain assumptions. Things have been done like this. If you ever get a chance, you can look up and see what happened with Comet Pizza. Comet Pizza is this restaurant in DC that catered to children and families to go out where they could play games and eat pizza and have all these good times and all that. But emails were shared with certain Democratic candidates and Democratic civil workers, where they were going out and talking about meeting Comet Pizza, and suddenly these emails got out and people started making connections and saying Comet Pizza was code word for so many things. It culminated in this gentleman driving from another state to Comet Pizza with an AR-15 walking in the door, and thankfully no one was killed or shot or anything like that, but this conspiracy theory developed into such a dangerous thing where this gentleman walked in and would have. And when asked why he did what he did, he said that he was going to free children from a basement that were being kept there on the commands of George Soros and Hillary Clinton and all of this stuff. So this stuff is important. You know, I know that people out there think there's not a lot wrong with conspiracy theory, that people are allowed to have these, but they are dangerous. They are dangerous. When people interpret information and they don't have a clear context for what is going on and what's behind things, people make assumptions and it can be dangerous. So technical communication is going to really reach a global audience, either electronically linked. Our global communities share social, political, and financial interests. LinkedIn is a big one, but more and more you're starting to see Facebook take on a much more broad scale, going into certain business realms where they've actually got their own, you know, I have seen people have Facebook meetings. So this stuff happens. Social media is becoming a big link, and it's troubling in my opinion, but to each their own. Technical communication reaches a global audience to connect with all readers. Technical documents need to reflect global and intercultural diversity. And what do I mean by that? To be able to connect with all readers. Some of you are going to probably be working, you know, somewhere in the UP. Some of you are going to be working downstate, but you know, some of you are going to be working with international contracts. And it's important to consider that you have to understand that you have to reflect a certain intercultural diversity, which means certain things that you say, certain euphemisms, metaphors, similes, things like that may not translate well to them, okay? It may not translate well to a broader audience, and vice versa. You have to understand that you're going to have a little bit of openness and try to take certain analogies with a grain of salt, and understand that. And be clear in your writing so that you are as clear as you possibly can be. Cultures are going to differ over which behaviors seem appropriate for social interaction, business relationships, contract negotiations, and communication processes. Again, that's when your metaphor, similes, and all that good stuff's going to come into play. Sometimes it could be a simple gesture as a bow or a handshake, but often as technical communicators, our realm is going to dwell within the writing area. So make sure that when you are using wording, be very careful. You can tell a lot of the new international communications, a lot of English speakers globally now speak what's considered a business English. And it's an odd, strange kind of English where you're going to see them using words in professional documents like stuff or junk or things. And the reason why is because it's being imparted through our communications to the world. A lot of these folks are picking up their information in negative ways. So you need to consider that, but also you need to consider as an audience where they may be coming from and how they may have gotten their certain bits of information. Don't correct them, you know, just try to portray a good model. Technical communication is part of most careers. Whatever your job description, expect it to be evaluated, at least in part, on your communication skills. Anytime that we have had people come out from, especially when we do the career fairs over at Michigan Tech and we go and we speak with different companies, one of their biggest knocks back in the day, not anymore, but back in the day, was that we needed to tighten up on how well you communicated in a technical world. A lot of you may think, and I have had students who thought, I'm going to be working as an engineer, I'm going to be in a basement somewhere, I'm not going to have to communicate with anybody, and blah, blah, blah. That's just not true today. Today, you wear many hats. You may be an engineer who is going to be going abroad to explain whatever it is that you're working on, and you have to be able to do that in a professional way. So as a rule and as a way to fulfill an obligation to these companies that we felt like we had, that's why we started to make science and technical communication, or professional and technical communication, a mandatory course for Michigan Tech. Most professionals serve as part-time and technical communicators, and this is true, just like I said. Technical communication skills such as the ability to write and speak effectively, research information, and work with teams and be persuasive are portable and vastly important. Okay, I know you guys. Listen, raise your virtual hand if you hate working in groups. I'm going to throw mine up because I don't care for it either. It's not my biggest thing that I like to do. But the thing is, you're going to do it. When you leave here, you will be working in groups, and in some of these groups, you're not going to like the people you're working with. And in some ways, you're going to be working with people who are hard-headed, who are stuck in their ways, who have such a vastly cultural difference between you and them that it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult at times. But on the other hand, some of the best work comes out of group work. And the reason why is because you get a lot of intelligent minds for the price, instead of that one intelligent mind. So you get much more bang for your buck, if you will. So be prepared. A lot of companies out there expect it, and you will be expected to participate in group projects and group activities. Make the best of it. Full-time technical communicators may serve roles such as producing newsletters, pamphlets, journals, and public relations material. This happens quite often. A lot of people who leave our program specifically for this major will go to work with people like Apple, or go to work with SpaceX, different companies like that, where they're building information to share with a public audience. Preparing instructional material, reports, proposals, and scripts for industrial films. We, even in this class, in the in-class section that I worked with, that I actually taught, we had a project where we did work closely with the theater department, working in specific areas of how the technical world translates over into theater. Preparing sales literature, publicity releases, handbooks, catalogs, brochures, web pages. You list it. Those are all the good things, but don't expect you not to have to worry about oral and multimedia presentations, because you will be seeing that as well. In fact, the job interview is an oral presentation on who you are. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to do an elevator pitch yet, but I would suggest that you practice it. I used to host those within this class, but I had to cut those for time. But it doesn't mean that they're not important. I feel like they are vastly important. But that all said, just keep in mind that these are things that you're going to be dabbling in, even as engineers, nursing majors, or nurses, or doctors, whatever. You are still going to be dealing with a lot of this stuff. To this day, my brother-in-law, I still go over and proofread a lot of his work, and he is the Surgeon General for Montana, and I do a lot of the work for him, as far as making sure that he looks professional and, is the way that he should be. So if you don't have, you may not have access to, a professor in technical communication when you get out into your professional world. So it's good to have as much of this as you can get before you leave it. Main features of your technical communication is going to be reader-centered. So it's not about, we're not doing some abstract poetry slam session where, we put out this very thought out, abstract, kind of idea about the sky and why it's blue. We don't put out, for that matter, we don't put out heuristic writings, and heuristic means, writing for writing to let someone kind of like find a meaning on their own. We don't do a heuristic writing on a technical document. We don't want people to go in and try to figure it out on their own. This is clear, this is concise, it's not abstract. You're going to hear me harp several times throughout the semester, be clear in your titles. We do not do abstract titles. If you do a title, it's a descriptive title. It's a title that tells me exactly what I'm going to look at when I open this document. And the same thing happens throughout the entire document. It is reader-centered, okay? Nothing abstract to be taken. It's going to be accessible and efficient. It's going to be done as concisely as possible, and it's going to be done as clearly as possible, and it's going to have nice pictures and all kinds of good stuff. It's often produced by teams, as we've already discussed, and it's often delivered in paper and digital versions. So you're going to have both digital and hard copies. Both of these carry their own baggage, okay? Whether they're going to be printed is going to determine whether or not what color scheme you want to use. Depending on if it's going to be printed, also determines how sensitive the information is in this, okay? Things that are online or digital can be encrypted. Things that are out on a piece of paper can be left in a bathroom somewhere, and somebody know all your state secrets. So consider these things. Technical communication serves three purposes that sometimes overlap. This is going to be to inform. That's going to be anticipate and answer your readers' questions. To instruct, to enable your readers to perform certain tasks, and to persuade, motivate your readers. A lot of you are going to think that to persuade isn't a really big deal. I would argue to persuade is going to be in every single document you write, period. What do I mean by that? You pick up a technical document. Let's say you go and you get those instructions from the big box store on how to install your car CD player, right? And you start flipping through it, and suddenly the language isn't as precise as it should be. It's vague, it's confusing, all these things. You are suddenly persuaded that these people don't know what the hell they're talking about, right? Ultimately, it seems unprofessional. It is unprofessional. It is taken, and it ultimately will detract from your company. Okay, price, the price of it being so low only goes so far. There are people out there who will pay the extra $10, $50, $100 to get something that they know is going to be a quality product and something that's going to be easy to use. It's going to be user-friendly, okay? So you are constantly going to be persuading your readers through your language, through the ways that you carry yourself within your documentation, and how you ultimately perform, because that's what a document is. It's a performance. Main questions you must answer: how do I prepare the right document for this group of readers and this particular situation? Okay, there's a lot involved in that. Things that you have to understand. There's basic tasks for an effective technical communicator, okay? And this is going to be deliver information readers can use, right? That's what you need to understand. And what that means is you need to understand who is the audience, okay? Who is the person that you're going to be speaking to? Are you going to be speaking to a group of peers? Are you going to be speaking to a lot of other mechanical engineers who are going to have some kind of idea on the nomenclature that you're going to be using, the jargon and all that good stuff? Or are you going to be talking to a general audience that their eyes are just simply going to glaze over as you go into detail? These are all important things to consider, and you can see that within the political spectrum. You can see that within the scientific community as scientists go out and try to harp on climate change and things of that nature. When they go out and they try to say, climate change is doing this and this and this, and they're trying to deliver that information, but they're delivering it in such a highbrow way, in such a convoluted and sophisticated way that your common readers, your general audience doesn't have the ability to take it up. They don't have the ability to absorb it. It just sounds like a lot of magic to a certain extent. And it really is. And that's why you'll see them get blown out of the water time and time and time again, where they hold a PhD or an MD or what have you, and then they'll have this guy who took a class in college, who holds a bachelor's degree in business management, talking on environmental, and this is an actual example, and we'll talk about that later in the semester, where they come out and they took a class in environmental engineering, just one semester, and they became the subject matter expert for these folks over here. And he was going against this guy with the PhD and scientific consensus and all this other good stuff. And the guy over with the bachelor's degree just blew him out of the water, blew him up, made him look like he did not know what he was talking about. And the guy had devoted his entire life to him. This is wrong. In my opinion, I think that's messed up. But the reason it happens is because humans, we love pictures, we love coloring books, we love all that simple stuff out there that we can grasp, that we can understand. And if this guy over here in the PhD is interjecting facts and figures that are conflicting with my worldview, whereas this guy over here in the business management is keeping with my worldview, I'm going to buy him faster than I'm going to buy somebody who's trying to change and upset my whole way of thinking. So make sure that you're understanding these things. And that all comes down to like persuasive reasoning, weighing ethical issues. Again, the guy with the PhD, he's trying to weigh those ethical issues and bring this to light. But we live in a world where morals and ethics, oh man, they're a hot mess. And we can say that they're devoted to one side or another, but ultimately it can come down to whether or not that moral or ethical thought can be bought. So you have to understand that you have to weigh these ethical issues and practice good teamwork, okay? Even if you don't like them, you still have to give them their due, give them their due for listening to them. This illustrates some specific tasks, those things that we just talked about. So you've got that effective document in the center. You've got that information that you want to deliver. It's definitely important, but you also need to make sure that information is going to be delivered in a manner that can be taken by an audience, that can be perceived by the audience. Otherwise, you're wasting your time and theirs. You're going to have to use persuasive reasoning. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Persuasive reasoning could just be a matter of using syllogistic logic. It could be using facts, data, figures, any of that good stuff. Persuasive reasoning comes when people see data. It typically makes them feel a little more comfortable. When they see examples they can relate to, it feels a little more comfortable for them, okay? What you're trying to do is interject a little bit of that stuff that you're saying into a worldview that they can understand. And then your ethical presentation. Make sure that you're using correct, appropriate, professional language, analogies. Try not to use euphemisms that can be racially biased or culturally biased, and try to stick with a good ethical persona. You want to present an aura of professionalism, and then good teamwork. Okay. So, just in review, let's talk about what is the definition of technical communication. Now, when we go in and you go in and you look at some of the message boards that I've posted for you already online, I'm going to want to know the answer to that question. I want you to tell me what you think science and technical communication is. What are some of the questions a computer can't answer? Why is global communication important? In what ways is technical communication part of most careers? What are the 4 main features of technical communication? What are the 3 purposes of technical communication? And what is the main question you must ask when preparing a technical document? And finally, what are workplace communicators for basic tasks? Okay, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in on this lecture. If you have any questions, I look forward to hearing them. You can post those into the general questions area on Canvas, or you can go in and start bringing this stuff up within our online, our message boards. Other than that, that's Introduction to Technical Communication. I look forward to seeing you guys next time.